This is your Women's Fund, Miami-Dade, 3 decades of putting a gender lens on everything in our community, focusing on women and girls. So as we all gather today, have an image of your village square, but we've built a village square that really covers our whole county and welcomes people from everywhere. I know we've got people signing in from New York, from Washington, D.C. We've got somebody in from Atlanta who's signed up today. We're all gathering from many, many different places. We don't all look exactly like cookie cutter the same, and that's the beautiful thing about your Women's Fund. We come together to leverage resources on behalf of women and girls. These incredible, break a sweat, fearless leaders represent our board of directors, and we honor you and we thank you every single day. Thank you so much. We have our founder, Marilyn Gladstone, who at 87 years old is fiercely interested in today's topic, and thanks you all for your service. We've got incredible leaders and community activists here in the audience with us today. Many of them, as I mentioned before, have spoken here before. Please, everyone, introduce yourselves, chat, share resources, ask questions. Let's make this hour really count. So on we go. We're going to thank 1 Billion Rising and the Scala family for empowering this impact collaborative. We're rising together for freedom in every different way. And now we're going to bring a focus to one of our second programs. One of our programs are these convenings, elevating important conversations and bringing tools. That's what the impact collaboratives do. Another one of our very important 4 programs is our research and data program. So Viviana Alvarado Pacheco, Dr. Maria Ilcheva from our board, our vice chair, and many others are leading this incredible focus on data to make women and girls not invisible, make them visible with data. Viviana is going to be posting in the chat, and we invite everyone to please click on, log in, and look at this, what I call stone soup of data. We're adding things all the time. Next Monday, our social media post will come out. We'll have some data on reproductive choice, health, and justice data. So Viviana is also going to post there in the chat how you can please, each and everyone, participate now by going to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, because every Monday you're going to get Data Mondays, a piece of great information, a great bite that you can take with you to be informed about women and girls in our community. And then on Wednesdays, you'll see other friends that you know often, because we do Women Power Wednesdays. So please sign up on our socials. And on we go, Kami, to someone who needs no introduction to many of us, our board chair and an incredible leader and a perfect keynote for today's Impact Collaborative, Arathi Ramappa. Happy New Year and welcome. Thank you. Take it away.
Thank you. Happy New Year, everybody. I'm excited for today. But I first want you to think about how many of you know people who have been talking about pro-choice and then suddenly start complaining about people who are religious or religion when it comes to pro-choice. And if we're honest with ourselves, how many times have we had similar thoughts where we get frustrated or angry or annoyed when we think about religion and pro-choice? It's normal, and I felt that way too, but I have to catch myself. First, because there are so many people of faith that I know that are working hard on pro-choice initiatives. And second, because I don't want to fall for the narrative that we're fed. And that narrative is that people who are religious are not pro-choice. It's not true. Can we go to the next slide? In fact, here is data from the Pew Research Center. Everything in red are the percentage of people that believe in the legalization of abortion. 82% of Buddhists believe in it. 48% of Catholics, that's a majority, even if it's slim, believe are for it. 33% of evangelicals. Now that seems small, but when you think about it, it's 1 in 3 people. 68% of Hindus, me being one of them. 52% of Black Protestants, still a majority, even if it's slight. 83% of Jewish people, 60% of Protestants, 55% of Muslims, 53% of Orthodox Christians, and 73% of people who are unaffiliated. So if you look at the numbers, the majority of most faiths are pro-choice. And that's why it's important that we need to stop this narrative that people of faith are not part of the movement, because they are here along with us in this journey. Last summer, we did an impact collaborative on reproductive health and justice and rights. And we had a speaker, Elizabeth, who is the president of the Women's Funding Network. And I'm paraphrasing what she stated, but she said that one of the problems in the pro-choice movement in the past is that we did not include include a lot of voices of women of color. And I agree with that. And I also think that we need to ensure now that we include voices of faith, because they are doing integral work. In fact, next slide, please. Here in Florida, 7 faith leaders filed a suit to overturn the HB5 law. This is the law that says no abortions past 15 weeks, no exceptions. And these leaders were from Reformed Judaism, Buddhism, the Episcopal Church, the United Church of Christ, and the Unitarian Universalist Church. And they stated that, are saying that this violates their freedom of religion. Now, we often think that freedom of religion leads to more restrictive laws, but leaders of faith are now saying that these restrictive laws impede on their freedom of religion. And this is why we need to stop this narrative. Faith doesn't have to divide us. It can unite us. And isn't that what it's all about? So we need to start thinking about that when we're talking to other people. We need to start thinking about faith when we're having the difficult conversations with people that disagree with us. Here at the Women's Fund, we have supporters that that support us on different issues, but do not agree with our stance on choice. And that's okay. We love them and we respect them and we appreciate them. But we need to start having the difficult conversations with people, because people are so nuanced. They are not binary in their beliefs. I know progressives that are pro-life, and I know conservatives that are pro-choice. But whether they're pro-choice or pro-life, what's interesting is what they consider right or wrong varies, and there is no standard. Can you go to the next slide? With people that believe in abortion being legal, they have 74% of them do not believe there's an exact standard for what's right or wrong. They believe that it depends on the situation. And the same goes for people that do not believe that abortion should be legal, but 53% of them still believe that what's right or wrong depends on the situation. And this is an opportunity for us right now, because there's such varying standards here. We can build bridges by talking to people, but we have to talk to them. And I know that it's difficult to think about having these difficult conversations with people about pro-choice. It can be hard and we don't want to have them. But when we walk in our faith and have these difficult conversations, the outcomes will surprise you. I see it all the time in my work. Outside of being the board chair, I am an executive and corporate coach and a spiritual coach. And what I see all the time is whether somebody believes in a higher power or if they're atheist, most people believe in love and kindness and compassion. However, we don't bring that in to our difficult conversations because we're often in reactionary mode. So we need to work on that piece. And how do we do this? The way we do this is making the intent to have the conversation, not trying to prove someone wrong, but making the intent to just be loving and kind and compassionate. And when we do that, we let go of the stress of the fight. And when we let stress go, all of us need to let it go. It feels much better walking in kindness. Then we listen, not to change somebody's mind, but to understand. Because how does it feel when you're heard and understood? How much more open, can you go to the next slide? How much more open are you to someone else's viewpoint when you've been heard and understood? And when somebody has treated you with kindness. So we want to create understanding. And I know that it's hard. People think, why do we need to create understanding with everyone? But if we don't, why are we doing this work? And when we create understanding with others, we are walking in faith, and we are walking in our values of kindness and compassion, and we are building bridges. And with each bridge we build, we strengthen the movement, and we strengthen ourselves. Thank you, and I love you all. And now let's get on to the speakers.
Stronger together indeed. Thank you, Madam Leader. We do want you to participate. This is your forum. This is your Women's Fund. We'll conduct 3 polls throughout the webinar to collect your opinions. Some of this is data. Arathi and others are really talented in helping us to demonstrate impact. And if we want to be stronger together, we need to demonstrate it. Polls make a difference. So please do participate. We don't have a lot of time for questions this time because we've got such a rich, incredible panel here. But if you do have questions, we'll get to as many as we possibly can. Please put them in the Q&A. So we're going to ask our panelists, our speakers, to do the impossible and introduce themselves in 2 minutes or less, because it's in context of today's webinar. We hope that's possible for you, Jamie. So please take it away.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Arathi, for that really powerful opening. I really, really appreciated that message so much. My name is Jamie Manson. My pronouns are she, her. I'm president of Catholics for Choice. I've been in this role 2 years and 3 months. My first week was the Amy Coney Barrett hearings. My next month was Joe Biden becoming the first unequivocally pro-choice Catholic president. And then, within a year later, we were fighting for Roe. And then 6 months after that, sadly, we lost it. So it's been a wild ride in this role. But I was very, very thrilled to be here. I'm queer, I'm Mask of Center, I'm a proud lesbian. And I was thrilled that someone of my identity could lead a Catholic organization, which previously was unthinkable. I'm proud to have been a gadfly in the Catholic Church for feminism, for LGBTQ equality, for women's ordination, anti-racism, all of those justice values in the Catholic Church. I've spent 20 years doing that. And so this was a wonderful thing to take on this role. And I'm here because the Catholic Church for the last 50 years has had a very powerful crusade against reproductive freedom, against women, and more recently against trans people and queer people. And I'm here because that movement that they have started and that was put on steroids by evangelicals, that movement, that anti-choice movement, is not secular, it is religious. And so we need religious voices. There is no game without religious voices in the reproductive justice, reproductive rights movement. We know not only how to answer back those opposition and those voices, but we also know how to speak to the people who are conflicted, because you're right, it is a morally complex issue and we shouldn't be hesitant to name that. And we know how to engage and have courageous conversations with those communities. So that's why I'm here. I'm here because 56% of Catholics think abortion should be legal in all or most cases. 68% of Catholics did not want to see Roe versus Wade struck down in June. And to me, the most compelling is that 1 in 4 abortion patients in this country is Catholic. And so Catholics who have abortions are participating in the life of the church. They're your Eucharistic ministers, they're your lectors, they are washing the priest's garments and their dishes, and they're being told that somehow they're complicit in murder. And that is a pastoral crisis and a profound, profound spiritual violence that is going unspoken in our church. And so I'm here ultimately to tell pro-choice Catholics you're not alone. Thank you.
And we could not be any more thrilled to have you with us today. Thank you so much, Jamie. And Gloria Romero Rosas, your treasurer, who is here with us today as well. And on we go. We're going to ask Laura to please do the same. Introduce yourself in 2 minutes or less. And I know you're a busy lady, so good luck.
You know, whatever. Good morning. My name is Laura Rodriguez. Some of my current titles include the NCJW Florida State Policy Advocate. I'm the chair of the Pro-Truth Florida campaign, which is an NCJW Miami campaign. I'm the chair of the Courts Matter Florida Coalition. I'm also the chair of the Faith Clinics Work Group of the Floridians for Reproductive Freedom Coalition. I'm also a wife, a mom, and a grandmother in waiting. So I have a lot going on, but I'm really happy to be here today and share with you all some of the Judaic viewpoints about reproductive justice and abortion and how those things shape our values and why we fight for those kind of justice rights. And it's also part of Judaism to repair the world. We call it Tikkun Olam. So it's really about taking care of everyone and making sure that everyone has the same rights as everybody else and everyone has the same outcomes in life, which is a tall order. I'm currently engaging in this fight by raising awareness of the threat of crisis pregnancy centers. They're also known as CPCs, and they're growing around our state as around the country. And I also lead our advocates to Tallahassee and to DC to face our lawmakers. And I hope my daughters follow in my footsteps. My husband has been a constant partner with me. And I hope that the next generation, God willing, whatever higher power you have or don't have, hopefully we'll be able to secure reproductive justice and rights in perpetuity. And I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
My 96-year-old father's on as well, and he says the same. I'm with you. Let's take this forward. We have a wonderful community leader here who I'm thrilled. One of our board members, Priscilla Dames, introduced us to Teresa. Please tell us a little bit about yourself in 2 minutes or less.
Hi, okay, my name is Teresa Lomax, and I serve at our church, The Fountain, along with my husband, Wayne Lomax, and I currently serve as the ministry advisor to the women's ministry, as well as some other hats I wear there, but for many years did serve as the women's ministry chair, and therefore then interested in most all things that concern women. And so I think that, before I get there, I'm also a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner. So I've always been someone who's been concerned about women's, but all people's mental health. And so now I really get an opportunity to speak to women about different issues that they may be, just faced with, and trying to help them do better and have better mental health. And so in this particular fight, as a Christian, then certainly what we believe, based on what we know in the Bible, or what we interpret anyway, could be that God would be against, murder. That's Old Testament, right? But I believe also that a woman's right to choose is hers. And whatever the issues are, it's really, if she's a woman of faith, and really believes and holds intentional relationship with God and what I believe in with Christ, then it's really between her and God. And so my main concern in all of that is also trying to, even starting from youth, getting with women, young women, to help them have a more solid foundation, starting with themselves and knowing who they are and what their purpose is in life, and knowing about their bodies, and trying to help them make better choices, so that if maybe they can stave off some of these issues and not possibly get to a place where they might need an abortion, so that maybe when they are pregnant, they'll be in a better place, and especially for Black women, be in a better place where they can then continue on. But certainly we know that there are lots of things that happen in there that may certainly say that dictate a woman, needing an abortion. And so because of where we are in our state and the laws and where, those the 15-week ban and, Medicaid, and federal funds not being able to support a woman in that, though, they're doing some work in those areas, then we find ourselves in a place where, we really need to fight and support women in whatever choice they make. And so my main concern really is just trying to help women to be, just solid and knowing who they are, and just stable as they can be, and so that they can make good choices all along the way,
Amazing.
and be able to do that.
We're so grateful and thrilled for you to be here today.
Thank you,
Teresa. Thank you so, so much. And we're going to go on to Aliza, who is joining us very early in the morning from California. Aliza, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be a part of this discussion. I've been looking forward to it. My name is Aliza Cosme, pronouns she and her. And I am a co-executive director of HEART, which is a national Muslim-centered reproductive justice organization. So I'll say a little bit about me and a little bit about HEART, and then I know we want to dive into our conversation. So I was born and raised in California. I am a Muslim. I am a survivor of gendered violence. And I am a daughter of immigrants, so I have a lot of intersecting identities that really inform, why I do the work that I do as an advocate. And I also have a background in policy advocacy and civic engagement and just working across different issues. And then with HEART, I don't know if folks are familiar with us, but we've been around for 12 years. We were founded in Illinois, and my partner director, Nadia Mahajer, is a co-founder. And basically what we do is in our acronym, as you can see on the screen. And so there's a lot of things that we do, but the core of our work is health education. And we've recently been trying to go deeper in the political education aspect as well. And given that we are national, we're working with Muslims and people of all different faith backgrounds, people of no faith, all around the country. And, we started out focusing specifically on sexual violence and sexual violence intervention and prevention. And over time, we realized that, we needed to focus on gendered violence overall. And then from there, that we needed to actually focus on justice, because it's not enough to simply end violence. We also need to, promote the change that we want to see. And so our mission is to promote sexual health, uproot gendered violence, and advance reproductive justice. So I'm excited to share more about, what we've been doing and how folks can get connected and hopefully, get more involved with us. And likewise, we are always wanting to deepen our partnerships. So again, thank you so much for the invitation to be here today.
Stronger together, stronger together. It's so exciting. So this next segment, we're going to do in 3 minutes or less. We're going to ask each of our speakers to help us focus on issues. What do you see? What do you know that this collective of attendees would like to know. Please inform us. Take it away, Jamie.
Thanks so much again. So good to be with you all. What we're seeing fundamentally is right-wing religious forces, Catholic and evangelical specifically, trying to codify religious ideas into civil law. And with those, this crusade that they are on with their religious ideas, they're trying to strip away women's rights, reproductive rights, LGBTQ rights. And it is a white nationalist Christian supremacist movement with very deep roots in white supremacy. And so it is so urgent that we work together to take back that narrative. We have the moral high ground, and we have to claim it, and we have to do that together. All of these ideas, fetal personhood, life beginning at conception, these are theological ideas. These are Catholic ideas, and they're pretty fringe even among Catholics. And what this amounts to really is a stripping away of our fundamental religious freedoms that are guaranteed to us under the Constitution. It's a violation of religious freedom of people who are religious and not religious. I often like to say if you don't think the Catholic Church is powerful, know that it impacts you whether or not you are religious or not. And again, it's a violation of religious freedom, which is supposed to guarantee not only our right to practice our faith, but our right to be free of the beliefs of others. And so we work very closely, particularly with our partners at NCJW and HEART, to talk about this, to talk about how particularly the beliefs of one religious group are taking away the religious freedom of others. And so this is why I think we're so essential. And I think we're also essential because we can speak in that religious language, as I said at the top. And that is very powerful. And one of the struggles that some of us have talked about in different convenings and things like that is that we don't really have a place in the larger pro-choice movement. And I think that's a struggle. I think the secular pro-choice movement doesn't quite know what to do with us. I think we often get tokenized, at speeches and things like that. Sometimes we sort of get drained for our thought leadership, but we haven't really been integrated in a powerful way in the pro-choice movement. And so I think that's something that we're seeing very clearly. We also know that many of us are underfunded. Most of us are underfunded. Faith-based reproductive rights and justice work has either been stripped of its funding or has been, historically underfunded. We have faith-based reproductive justice leaders who are on Medicaid because they can't pay themselves a salary. They give what money they have to the work. And these are very, very deep structural problems, I think, that faith-based reproductive rights is dealing with, that I think it's time to really, really reckon with and bring justice to, because there is no game without us. We are pivotal in this movement. Religious faith has always been pivotal in civil rights movements of all sorts, and it is no less the case here, because this is about moving a needle. And fighting a religious force. Great, it is a Christian nationalist, white supremacist religious force. But the only way we're going to take that narrative is to be able to use religious language, to be able to transform the minds and hearts of people of faith, so that they can work through what is a morally complex issue and what has not really been named as a morally complex issue. And we have to be comfortable with saying that now and not shame it and not stigmatize that, but give people a place to bring their questions, to get beyond that polarization that's happened in this movement, to give them a place to discern, this issue that they have just had so much intense messaging and indoctrination from their faith communities about. So I think that's really, really urgent. We have to admit that we lost Roe. We have to admit that. And with that, I think comes an invitation for new approaches, for new language, for new messaging, to widen our circle, the way Alicia Garza says we have to. And so that, I think, is how we have to meet the moment.
That is terrific. And when we come to the final segment, I'm going to ask you to talk about some of the tools. I have the Advocates Bible sitting next to me here, Jamie. So Thank you, Laura. The incredible work that National Council for Jewish Women has done steadfastly. What are you seeing?
I will echo what Jamie had to say. But what I wanted to share with you all a little bit was about, I don't know how many of you are familiar with how Judaism views reproductive justice and abortion, but I wanted to sort of give you a little introduction to it. As in most faiths, Judaism bases itself on text and interpretation, and hopefully society growing and broadening the interpretations and understandings of those texts. One of the most important ones that we look at is in Exodus, and it basically states that if a pregnant woman is harmed when two men are fighting, and she has a miscarriage. And in the Torah, it says that the husband can only seek financial damages from the responsible party. And this suggests that the fetus has not yet achieved personhood. If they said it was an eye for an eye, life for an eye, life situation, then it would be considered that that fetus was a person and it was a death penalty kind of situation. In the next text, it sort of is the same. It goes on along with the same text as in Exodus, except it says that if there was a tragedy and it was a situation of life for life, then it would be in the case that the mother had died, not that the fetus had been, not that the fetus had miscarried. In the next text, it states that if a woman is found pregnant, until the 40th day, it is mere fluid, and the fetus is simply considered a part of the mother's thigh. Again, it's stating that the fetus does not yet have personhood and is not protected under the law until it has taken its first breath. And this is where we differ in the general definition, where you get legislation such as HB 5, which considers that at the moment of conception is the moment of personhood. So that's where we have that First Amendment problem, which Jamie was referring to. The next slide. In these two texts, these go on to the issue of termination of pregnancy and abortion. In both of these, it has to do with if the mother, first of all, the mother's having trouble giving birth, the child is supposed to be withdrawn from the mother because the mother's life comes before that of the fetus until it has emerged, which means that when it takes its first breath and does become a person. In the second piece, it talks about if the woman is an adulteress and has had an affair, that the child, that she can be shown leniency and have the child aborted to avoid woe and pain in her life, even if the child might be her husband's. So this is a case of not just a physical, but of the emotional circumstances of carrying that child. The next slide, please. These two texts are further reflection about the leniency and the permission given to having an abortion. Should having that child cause the mother psychological, spiritual, emotional pain, or should having that child or bringing that child into the world cause pain and strife to her family, to her lifestyle, to others in the community. So it's not just about the physical, whether the child is a person or not. It's also about the well-being of the mother. So as I said before, in cases where with HB 5, the definition of when life begins really has an effect upon our freedom to practice how we feel, and frankly, probably many other religions. And that's a little bit of
Judaism.
Judaism.
Thank you so much, Laura.
Rabbi Laura.
Thank you. That's terrific and informative. Now we are going to go on to Teresa and tell us what you're seeing in your community, Teresa, please. And you've got amazing colleagues here, lots of local people, leading organizations, working with young women and girls and families. So I know that you've got a lot of community here. Welcome to you all in the audience.
Well, and thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to be here and to speak. And so I think what's most important that we should see, and that what everyone is seeing, that people of color really are the ones who may seek abortions based on our just our social and economic factors that create barriers for us. A woman of color may find herself in a spot where she just does not want to move forward with the birth. And so if possible that she wasn't able to get an abortion, it's going to create an even, greater impact on her family, just on her own life and mental health. And may even, if she lived in a place, but of course here, not in Florida necessarily, she'd have to pay out of pocket, but that's another issue, just not being economically able to maybe afford an abortion and not having any like insurance coverage and things like that to help her would really then possibly put her in a position where she, might die because she's gone to places that, just not would be safe or savory for her. And then other places possibly become a criminal because she sought an abortion anyway. So I think in our community necessarily, there just has to be more education for women and create better access to care and to birth control, but education about their bodies, birth control. We have a lot of stigma and misinformation about birth control and what all that means, taking that. But I just think just knowing that women of color are faced with tremendous barriers all around maternal health, infant health, and then trying to seek abortions. So there just has to be a lot of information and a lot of, and I want to say this, that I also piggyback on what Jamie said. So important what she said. I really can't really add so much, too much more. She said a mouthful. Thank you so much.
Terrific what you're saying, Teresa. And I'm going to say again, Arathi mentioned, and I'm going to ask Viv for you to repost it again. What you just mentioned, we talked about that in our June Impact Collaborative a little bit. It's really important to understand we're talking about reproductive health. We're talking about reproductive choice. We're talking about reproductive justice. And there are overlaps, but they're not all the same. They each have really long tentacles. And so what you brought up there, Teresa, is absolutely critical. So we talked there, trying to add voice there to definitions, distinctions, intersections, and calls to action across those three areas, those three perspectives of reproductive health. So we encourage everybody to please see, you can do it while you're chopping vegetables or driving the car, listen to some of those insights and those different voices. Also, this Impact Collaborative will be available tomorrow on our website and on our YouTube. Please subscribe to our YouTube. I'll ask the team to please post that as well, because we encourage you to quote unquote plagiarize and grab some quote unquote quotes. Some of this information and some of those slides that Laura gave or the references that Jamie is giving here, you're welcome to utilize those in your own conversations with your organizations, your personal networks, and your dinner table, right? So with that, Aliza, I'm going to ask you to, in 3 minutes, talk about what you're seeing in the Muslim community and the work that you're doing.
Thank you. Yeah, so I actually want to share a little bit about Muslims in the US, because we find that even among Muslims, people don't tend to know that, for example, 1 in 3 Muslims in America is Black. The fastest growing ethnic group among Muslims in America is actually Latinx. At least 6 out of 10 Muslims are foreign born. And so, as people have already touched on, this is a racial justice issue. Like, that's part of why we talk about and center reproductive justice in addition to health and rights is because you can't talk about health, rights, or justice in the reproductive sense without recognizing that this is absolutely a racial justice issue. It's an economic justice issue on top of being a gender justice issue. And so in addition to, some of the demographics that I noted, we are also the second largest faith community in the South and the Midwest. So as you all know, those are the regions that are disproportionately and have been disproportionately impacted by a lack of access and lack of justice around sexual and reproductive health, even before Roe. And so we Muslims are uniquely impacted. There's a lot that I could say around, our beliefs, but it's impossible to talk about in any amount of time because Muslims are incredibly diverse, and I'm only one person. I can't speak on behalf of the entire faith community, of course, but more importantly, there is no consensus. There's no real consensus around, what the Islamic view on abortion is because there's so much diversity. And so I'm actually going to chat a resource that we have where if you go through this PDF, it'll share more about some of the legal and ethical considerations Islamically, but we don't have time to get into it. But again, I just want to uplift what Arathi already pointed out, which is that over half of Muslims in this country do support access to safe and legal abortion. And just from my own, perspective, talking with community members, studying our religion, it comes down to power and control, which is also known as bodily autonomy. And, Muslims and people of color and immigrants in this country have a lot at stake, with regards to bodily autonomy and that power and control over our own bodies and our own lives. Even if you don't look at sexual and reproductive health, if you set that aside, the issues of surveillance, the issues of policing, which absolutely intersect with this issue where we're seeing, abortion being increasingly criminalized, that really matters. That's a huge concern to our communities. And so that's definitely one of the major areas that we're continuing to try to gauge. What are people's experiences as survivors, as people who are simply trying to access health care that could potentially be life-saving or not? Even if it's not life-saving, it's their right. And we are pro-abortion and we are pro-reproductive justice as an organization, because we feel that bodily autonomy is sacred and it is very much Islamic, and reproductive justice is inherently Islamic. So that's what I'll say about that. And then, we also are definitely seeing just ongoing lack of access to comprehensive, culturally sensitive, and affordable care, which again, that issue is not new. It has been longstanding even when Roe was in place. And in particular with Muslims, especially visible Muslims, for example, people who wear hijab, people not being able to access the kind of care that they need, even for things like, for example, someone has vaginismus and she talks to her doctor. The doctor's response is, well, you probably should just be having more sex, because there's this ingrained, stereotyping and racism and Islamophobia that people assume, including our, service providers, some of them, that, they make a lot of assumptions about Muslims and sex and, our reproductive decisions. But ultimately, what we have seen again and again is that Muslims do have abortions. There definitely is a level of stigma within the community, but I would say that the bigger concern is actually the way that non-Muslims who are Islamophobic, regardless of their well and good intentions, are making their minds up about what Muslims believe without actually talking to different Muslims. And so that education, is really, really important.
I know that, sometimes I have to say there's a collective roar that I hear. We're not in a live situation here where we're hearing the applause, but I can feel the applause, what these profound, thought-provoking, often simple ideas, right? Really, we can all take them out into the community, and everybody here today is going to. Lisa, what you just said is so profound. Thank you. Please, everyone participate in the poll. Pretty please, pretty please, pretty please. And now on to our next lightning round. And in 3 minutes or less, please, calls to action, tools. What can we do? In this hour, people need to leave empowered. So please empower us. Jamie, take it away.
Thanks so much. We're not going to win this with a soundbite, with a tweet, with a motto. It's not going to be that simple. We need a real transformation of heart and mind, of consciousness in this country around abortion, because we've endured decades of Catholic and Christian right-wing indoctrination and disinformation about this issue. And so at Catholics for Choice, the heart of our mission is to encounter people, to educate them, and to embolden the voices and the convictions of people who are already with us. So with that in mind, we just produced 1 week before the Dobbs decision, we put out the Advocate's Bible. I'm thrilled, Mariah, you have one at your desk. And what this is really, we started this about 3 months into my tenure at CFC, and it was a labor of love. It was an all-team effort. Everyone on our staff contributed to this. And it truly is what we thought we needed was a one-stop shop for how to talk to people about abortion. And it's geared more toward Catholics, but I think any person of faith could benefit from it because we talk about what our 3 guiding principles are, how we make our pro-choice Catholic arguments, which is, if you want to know, conscience, religious freedom, and social justice are our guiding principles. We talk about reproductive justice and Catholic social justice, how those frameworks overlap. We talk about the white supremacist roots of the modern anti-choice movement, the opposition. We talk about what abortion is. We explain the human reproductive cycle, which we weren't convinced everyone knew about. Including, I was talking to medical students for choice, and they said, don't assume even our medical students know this, because medical education has its limits around, certainly, particularly around women's health. We talk about all the history of the court cases, and there's a pastoral section, how to support people who have had abortions or discerning having an abortion. We tell people how to share their abortion stories and how to lobby. And so we're so thrilled about it. What we've done is we actually do what I call bespoke seminars and talks about this. I have, just in the last few months, I've been in 2 Catholic universities. I've gone where no pro-choice Catholic has gone before. I went to a large community of nuns where there was a constitutional amendment on the ballot. I will do these discreetly. I will do them publicly. And our staff will also do them as well, depending on what kind of content you're looking for. The whole point is to have these courageous conversations, to create safe spaces, particularly among people of faith, where we can have those conversations, where we're not gatekeeping each other, where we're not judging, where we're trying to widen that circle and honor the moral complexity of the issue as it is. And help people see that very often they do have pro-choice values and they don't even realize it, because the atmosphere is so polarized. I'll show you one more thing we also put out called You Are Not Alone. This was a response to abortion providers who said we get a lot of patients of faith. We get a lot of Catholic patients. We're not all of us are religious, and even those who are have fraught relationships with our faith. Can you help us figure out how best to approach them and to talk to them about their decision? And so we did that. I'm very proud to say we'll be going to New Mexico next month and doing trainings with abortion counselors at 2 clinics there. We want to keep doing that work. This is just the beginning for us. And so we thought, in addition to the more cerebral, we also wanted to have pastoral literature. And right now in development, we have a brochure on how to talk to your Catholic family about abortion. And so that'll be the next frontier that we'll be doing with. So if you'd like any of these materials, please contact Catholics for Choice at catholicsforchoice.org or CFC at catholicsforchoice.org. We would be thrilled to engage further with you.
Well, Gloria is helping support there in the chat. Thank you, Gloria.
Thanks, Gloria.
Terrific. And I'll say that, my mom was the Lutheran church choir director. And I'm already using some of the tips. The Advocates Bible is amazing. It really does work for anyone. And Jamie, I know you do a lot of online things. You can also, anybody's welcome to join any of your discussion groups or webinars as well, right? You don't need to be
Absolutely.
Right.
All are
Okay.
welcome.
All right. So thank you so much for that. Laura, tools and calls to action, please.
Hi again. Thank you, Jamie. I'm just going to speak a little bit about, NCJW nationally and in every state and everywhere around the country is engaged in different ways to uplift reproductive justice. I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about what Miami and what we're doing here in Florida. The state of Florida, as do many other states in our union, it has a budget which supports crisis pregnancy centers, CPCs, or fake clinics. There are about over 200 of them in Florida, and their mission is to stop any abortion in its tracks. In other words, they want to deny access to an abortion in any way possible. Their tactics have become increasingly deceptive and harmful. A quick internet search or a peek in the window will give you a view of a legitimate healthcare facility with paid medical staff, offering legitimate medical testing, advice, compassion, options, even diapers, should they end up being required. But in fact, most of these are unlicensed. They employ volunteers who dress up in scrubs or white coats. They have physicians on record who might actually be dentists. They give misinformation about gestational age, which when you live in a state that has a 15-week ban can make a big difference in your future. And they're often affiliated with religious organizations. Remember, I said they are funded by the state. They are part of the budget. Taxpayer dollars go to them for over $4 million a year. Clearly, it's a breakdown between church and state. Pro-Truth Florida is a campaign, as I said, that's coming out of Miami NCJW and also in New York. And we're working with our partners at the Floridians for Reproductive Freedom to inform and educate and inoculate our communities about and from these CPCs. We write honest negative reviews on search engines. We inform their corporate donors of who they're really giving money to. We get journalists and watchdog organizations on their tail. And we're starting a new project where we're going out to college communities because they often place mobile clinics on or near college campuses, which obviously they're targeting younger people. There are some easy ways to spot a CPC. They advertise the dangers of abortion. They offer abortion information rather than provide an abortion. They offer abortion pill reversals, which does not really exist. If you see on their website, they'll say, click for an appointment because you cannot make a phone call. You must go in there. They focus on limited ultrasounds. They will attempt to talk to you about religion. They oftentimes are located right next door to a legitimate clinic, and they may have friendly people who may walk next door and try to offer you assistance at their place. They might claim abortions are illegal, which they are not in Florida. And they may also attempt to offer you, as I said, clothing, diapers, etc., and other postnatal support that's in an effort for you to make the choice to keep that child. Next slide. There are some things that you can do about this threat. Most of them have websites. You can click and like honest negative reviews that people have already given. You can give your own honest negative review. You can report false advertising and fraud. You can walk in front of the clinic, but be careful because if there is a legitimate place next door, you want to discuss with that place because you don't want to interfere with their services. There is a Graham the Van Instagram campaign, which you can find on exposefakeclinics.com. And you can talk to your legislators to try to get this out of the budget. That is a long haul, but something we're working towards. And those are some of the websites that you can visit to figure out how to do some of these things. You can also email me. My email is at the bottom there. And you can join our fight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Laura. Teresa, calls to action, ways to join together, be part of your community.
Okay, great. I just have some thoughts that first, the Bible says that you must be compassionate just as your Father is compassionate. So I call us to just be that, as women, to be compassionate in our community. You know, as Christians, we can be judgmental. And so to not be that, but to be compassionate. And then also to just get involved with one of these wonderful organizations so that you too can work for overcoming these barriers, or any organization that really is working to overcome the disparities for women of color as it pertains to maternal and infant, health and better outcomes. And then also to educate yourself and other women as you become educated, and get others to join so that we really can just get a part of this fight and support our communities, and so that we really can have better outcomes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Terrific, terrific. Aliza, calls to action, info.
Well, thank you so much again for this conversation. And I definitely am going to talk about how people can connect with Heart, but I also want to make a plug for one of our partner organizations that actually is based in Florida, which is the Muslim Women's Organization. Please definitely check them out. They have been an amazing partner and collaborator of ours. We just recently did a Muslim Women Vote Early campaign with them this past, election cycle. And so I just wanted to shout them out, especially as we don't currently have staff on the ground in Florida. We have one of our staff is in Atlanta, but definitely Florida, Georgia, and Texas are some of our key states of interest in the South, just given the dense Muslim populations. And so I really hope to, continue being in community with you all, finding ways to support each other and possibly even partner. And so if you want to get in touch with me or Heart in general, the best way would be to actually just email us at info@heartwomenandgirls.org. And all of this is on our website as well. There's a couple of links that I know I shared with Camila earlier that we can put in the chat, but we also have a resource page on sexual violence and reproductive justice, which includes a lot of great information and tools. It talks about a couple of things. A lot of things, but one thing is that we have a reproductive justice fund, which is a practical support fund that folks can donate to. We also recently launched our first major publication, which is the Sex Talk, A Muslim's Guide to Healthy Sex and Relationships. And while it's specifically geared towards Muslims, it's actually really useful for pretty much anyone. Very comprehensive and covers a lot in terms of different sexual and reproductive health education, including education on healthy relationships. And we're continuing to do, different workshops and trainings and speaking engagements. So please definitely, reach out. And at the very least, we can look at, being able to connect with you all and your communities, at least virtually, if not, hopefully, God willing, when we're in Florida very soon. I actually am coming to Florida in a couple of weeks. So actually, I will also go ahead and chat my personal email so that people have that. And yeah, I think just in general, continuing to connect with each other and really lean into that cross-issue organizing. There's something that, a lot of the people who are on the front lines of this movement are under-resourced, historically under-resourced. And so it's just really critical that we connect with each other and find ways to promote reproductive justice, really centering the most impacted and trusting that the people who are the most impacted by the issues are also closest to the solutions. So thank you.
To that is so strong. Everybody, again, the cheer rises from the crowd. I feel everybody really fired up and empowered. It's one thing to care and to really ruminate and have, issues impact us. It's a different thing when you can know you're not alone, and that we are stronger together, and that we are empowered. So the conversation just goes to a different level from here. There are incredible people here. Take this to your networks, please. Before you leave, fill in the poll. And we're going to ask you to please remember that we meet every month here. What you need to know and what you can do to put on the gender lens to your community, women and girls in our community. And we'll be talking about human trafficking. And next month, we've got some really powerful leaders. Survivor champion, Dr. Brooke Bello, is going to be leading the conversation. Just like this conversation, human trafficking, it's not an issue that you go once and you learn about it and then you go on to the next thing. Things change all day long. And in February, you're going to come with the latest and greatest information and perspectives to keep us thinking until this violence stops. Grand mission supporters, you fuel our mission. We thank you so much for being with us today. And we're going to ask everybody to save the date for the really big gathering in person in our town, our village square. Power the Purse is our signature fundraiser, but it's also a big program. It's amazing to see people together. So that's Friday, May 5th. And we don't have time for Q&A. I'm going to stay on for a couple more minutes here, but we'll respect everybody. We went a minute over, which we usually don't. Thank you, everybody, for being here at your Impact Collaborative at your Women's Fund. We'll see you here this time next month. And panelists, please unmute yourselves. Everyone, just
Thank you very much.
Hey, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Great.
you.
Natasha,
Thank
Vivi,
Thank you.
I'm curious with everybody on here. So, before you leave, this is a kind of a large question, but if anybody wants to answer it, and if anybody wants to stay on, with the attendees. So I'm curious, like what you were saying, Jamie, is we need to bring this, we need to bring faith into this movement, right? And what do you think are the best ways? Because faith is on the other side. And like I said, that's, we need to bring faith to the forefront of this. And what do you think are the best ways to, amplify this voice here? Because it's very interesting when we're looking at it, when I'm seeing all the data, I'm like, wow, look at, the majority of people are pro-choice and we're not hearing that. So outside of doing the things that everybody is doing within their communities, how do we bring it to the larger forefront? And especially too, because of a lot of laws are going up and people are fighting for religious freedom because it's taking away their freedom. So this is great, a great movement now to be able to lobby for. So how do we amplify that piece? Anybody, any thoughts? I know that was a large question there, but
I wanted to give other women a chance to answer too.
Go ahead, interrupt each other. Go ahead. Who wants? Lisa, you got one for us?
I just think people might be afraid, if you're a person of a certain faith and maybe you don't even know exactly what you believe, even though you believe what you believe, you might not really know what's acceptable within your faith, within the leadership of your faith, what your next door neighbor is going to think once you open your mouth, so that's kind of what that's what I think might be part of it, that people they're hesitant of being called out, or just
Most definitely, people in our community, certainly, there just is a lot of stigma, a lot of judgmentalness, about a lot of judgment about what you believe. And if it doesn't go along, and, we always, heard me say the Bible, and, there's just a a lot that goes into that. And you don't want to be known, or, you know, even to be able to tell what your past has been, because maybe you did have one and you really do stand, you know, with, but you can't look like it because it seems as though that's not what God would have us do. But it's like anything else. That's between you and your God. That's what you know, that's just what I believe. And a woman's body is hers. And like every other choice you make, why are you just picking that one? You got a lot of other things. So I just think that could be part of it. But I think the voices of faith have to be, just like Jamie said, at the forefront, speaking the language and saying what you know to be true, in a sense, you know, for people to come forward and make the change.
And I would say that, you know, just in general, a lot of the dominant voices are, again, not people who are directly impacted. They're oftentimes not people with uteruses. And so if we have any power over kind of, you know, driving these, you know, narratives that we're trying to promote, that's really important to keep in mind, is that, you know, let's talk to people who actually have direct lived experience and can speak from a personal lens if they, you know, are willing and able to do that, which again, there is a balance, because there is a lot of stigma and shame, and even blaming, unfortunately, even within our communities. And that's why, again, just having conversations about, okay, even before we talk about sex and abortions and, like, you know, topics that might be kind of loaded for different people, let's just talk about why it's okay to talk, you know, and not have so much kind of like fear behind, you know, kind of unpacking these issues, even just on a community and social level. We don't have to disclose anything that individual people don't want to or cannot for safety reasons. And so as much as possible, again, just inviting and opening up space for people to be able to ask questions openly and freely, and also be able to share their personal experiences. But I think that, you know, it is challenging when I think people approach, for example, Muslims, faith leaders who don't have uteruses, and they're kind of speaking as maybe someone who, you know, has family members, loved ones who do have uteruses, but they ultimately do not know, you know, the different layers from a personal level. And even then, there are people, you know, among those people without uteruses who are still advocating for reproductive justice, because I think with Muslims, a lot of what we see is that, you know, even if you personally don't envision having an abortion and you don't feel comfortable with it, you know, as your personal choice, you don't want to impose that on other people, because you ultimately understand that in our tradition, we're each accountable to God individually. And so again, there's a lot to unpack, but if people don't feel like, others have been saying, that there's that safe and brave space to even unpack, then we're just going to kind of keep going in circles. So
I'm going to give a different answer that's probably more basic. We need money. You know, we need money.
That's yeah. I mean, I agree on that.
You know, Planned Parenthood is $1 billion organization. This is why they're able to take up so much, you know, messaging in the space. And, you know, we did a convening, a wonderful small funder gave Catholics for Choice a $50,000 grant. And they said, what would you like to do? And I said, I want to convene faith-based repro leaders. Aliza was there. And we just talked about, you know, very transparent conversation about our, you know, you know, that we are very deprived of funding. And even larger orgs like CFC, like NCJW, we get the eyedropper money. Here's 5,000, do this, you know, and this is just not a sustainable, you know, money to do it. And we have to we're the ones that can drive the narrative culture change in this and get them credibility to this movement. And it's just not there. I mean, and we all, you know, we had wonderful RJ leaders there. You know, reproductive justice framework is a product of the Black church. And we all agreed that women of the Black church developed that framework, and we all agree that that is the framework that will be most effective in transforming hearts and minds. But again, as I said earlier, a lot of these women leaders, are living personally on a shoestring, leading organizations on a shoestring. And so when you compare how much money the right wing has put into religious forces for their movement, the anti-choice movement, that hundreds of millions of dollars over 4 decades into religious forces, to promote their agenda. And we have just strangled, with deprivation, our pro-choice faith voices. We really need that. This needs to be a radical systemic change that needs to happen.
Yeah, thank you for that. Because I'm glad you just came down to, the money piece of it. Because, I'm thinking of, there's so many different facets of it when you're, all of you are talking about creating a safe space and having people feel comfortable and speaking from their experience, which I think is amazing. And then you're talking about money. And then I'm thinking about lobbying and how do we get, all of these leaders in different faiths come together like they are doing in Florida, right, to fight these laws and do it in each state and have that, and you need money behind it again too. But this whole idea of it's impeding on my freedom of religion and coming from faith leaders is amazing to me right now. Like I see that as what is going to happen there when that really becomes widespread. It could, and like you said, that's a cultural change, but it's there and starting. So that's why I'm saying, why can't we? But it's money, it comes down to money. So too. Right.
A lot, and the speaking up and about the being fearful. Really interesting. Our colleagues from the National Women's Funding Network, who had put us in contact with you, Jamie, at the same time that Gloria was talking to, it was all these synergies, but their programs person joined us today. And I know many other colleagues, my colleagues who are leading other women's funds across the nation, are really interested in this kind of conversation. So hopefully they'll be taking little bits and pieces of this impact lab or reviewing themselves going, hold it, we need to have this kind of conversation here. So, Eliza, Teresa, Laura, you all might get calls from other kind of people, because having conversations is important, right? And then, it translates from the conversations up all the way to the core funding and heavy duty politics. Gloria, I'm sure you have 1,000 things to say. I'm going to put a little drop here. Lane Shakeridge is on. She's tuned in. So Lane is executive director of Jewelry for Good. She volunteers to do it. So they've raised funds for us, and we hope to have many other Bring Your Bling Jewelry for Good fundraisers. But Jamie, for example, you're talking about funds. So I know that Lane and her partner who founded Jewelry for Good are really interested in supporting economically these kinds of things. So Lane, I'm sure we'll be in touch with all of you. Maybe you, Gloria. It's basically people bring their old orphan gold earrings and some old tarnished sterling silver that their great grandmother came and they can't keep it polished and melted down, and you take those funds. So I know there are a lot of people who have gotten turned on today listening to you all. So hopefully we'll be super connectors today. Arathi, your keynote, the landing of this is just so inspiring.
Yeah.
And I know Viviana, Kami, you're incredible leaders, younger leaders in this.
They're the ones who are putting these topics together. Okay, so they're the ones who are bringing all of you together. They're the masterminds behind it. Natasha, Vivi, Kami, doing a great job.
And taking it on and home. Kami, you're going to share this with some of your networks, right?
Oh, yes, definitely. The recording will be everywhere.
Terrific. And Vivi's really working on more data in this area as well, reproductive justice and rights. It's not the easiest to get, right? So there's serious, passionate work going behind the facts and the data. So we might plug into some of you to ask you for data. Actually,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Myra. I'm so sorry, but I must go. I have
you do
11 o'clock appointment. client.
We're
I have to
done.
go
Thank
too.
you,
I appreciate
Teresa.
all of you. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
your time.
Bye. Thanks so much.
So Laura
Bye,
and
everybody.
Jamie and
you.
Elisa, if you have data and facts, please make sure that Vivi knows, because the more that we bring things to, to our dashboard about facts, what you need to know,
Yeah.
the
Our,
less.
our national office would have data. Me, I don't, but they would.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
you.
Have a great day.